Well guys, I got a slight issue with the 91 420 SEL, and it's just basically a maintenance item. It turns out it needs new brake pads, and I'll show you how I know that. That's one of the unique features about this car, is it's got electronic pad wear sensors. So I just got the car in position to do the brake job. Of course, I still have my high idle problem I need to work on, but this light right here basically is a low brake fluid light and the parking brake light, and this light here actually is the brake pad wear indicator light, which currently is off. And the way it works is there's a little sensor embedded in the pad, and as that pad makes contact with the rotor, it completes the ground circuit and turns on the light. So every time I lightly depress the brake pedal, the light goes on, and as the pads return to normal, the light goes off. And it stays on now, but as the car goes down the road and the slight imperfections in the rotor push that pad back away, that light will go off again. So I know that at least one of the pads is worn down too much, either in the front or in the back. It just went off again. And then finally over here is a third brake light. That's the ABS warning light to indicate there's a problem with the ABS hydraulic module, which fortunately that's not on. So this is not too bad. It's just a consumable item. Brake pads wear down all the time, but I'm glad that I have a warning light here to tell me that what I need to do versus waiting for the pads to grind into the rotors. So we'll go ahead and shut this thing down. And I'll go ahead and get this thing up in the air. I'm pretty sure it's going to be the back pads actually, because the front pads, I had that wheel off a little earlier to clean it up and investigate the grease problem. The grease was flying out of it. So I'm going to go ahead and start on the rear and see what I end up with. And I'm going to go in with these a matched set of brake pads from Paget. And these are very high quality pads. And being a European car, and being made for a European car, they comply with the ECE R90 regulations that they have over in Europe. So you know these pads are made to OEM specifications. And of course they have the genuine factory seal on there, so you know what you're getting into. And even though the brake pads up front don't need replacing as I'm doing the rears, I want to go in with a matched set at all four corners. And a lot of people don't think about that. You know, why spend the money now to do a complete brake job when you can just do the back tires and, you know, get more life out of it? Well, I just got this car a little over a year ago, and I don't know what kind of brake pads are on the car. So, and I don't even know if they're matched between front and back. And it's very important to maintain safety and drivability to have the correct friction material front and back. In other words, you don't want to have high friction pads in front and low friction pads in the back, or vice versa. I want to have a complete match set. So I'll go ahead and do the entire brake job, which, believe it or not, on this car is not really all that bad. So let me go ahead and get this thing jacked up. I'm going to basically start at one wheel, do one wheel in the back to show you guys, and then I'll do an example of one of the front wheels. So I'll just do the left, the driver's side for the video, but you guys will get the idea as I do the other side. So let me get this thing up in the air and get that tire off and see what I got. Okay, I got the car jacked up in the air, just one side of it. I've got a safety jack stand under the lower control arm, and a jack as a backup, just in case that slips off. The jack will back me up on that. There's a little bit of surface rust on these rotors because I stopped driving the car as soon as I found that light coming on fairly steadily. I didn't want to run the risk of scoring a groove in these rotors. The rotors, probably can't see in the video, are in fairly good shape, but there's not a whole lot of difference in thickness between the unused portion and the used portion. I really should measure these with calipers and get an exact number, but I don't have a pair, but I can just tell by feeling that these rotors are still good and they're smooth. But the reason that light was coming on, I'm going to shine a light down here, is those pads are just... Sorry about that, had a battery failure there. I don't know how much life I have left in it. Okay, I got a solution to my failing battery problem, so hopefully this power adapter will sustain the load. Said I had 77 minutes left, but I guess the batteries just didn't have enough fast to run the camera once I started recording. But anyway, here we go. I'll try to show you guys one more time. If I can get in here with the light, and there you go. You can see how thin that pad is. It's almost got the backing plate rubbing against the rotor, so we know these things have to be replaced. So what you end up having to do is you got to take a punch, and we're going to punch out these tabs, and then we're going to take out the anti-rattle clip, and then we're going to remove the anti-wear sensor wiring as well too. And we'll start with the outer pad first. So let me put the camera back and try to zoom in on the action here so you guys can see that process. So we'll take out one of these pins, just drive it out, doesn't matter which one you start with first. Then we reach through the back. Now you may have to push in this anti-rattle spring just a little bit to relieve tension on that spring, or on the pin. And out comes the pin. And now we can take out one of the wear sensor connectors. These just pull right out like this. Kind of move those aside. We'll just take both of them out at the same time, get them out of the way. And now we'll drive out the other pin. And this should come out much easier since the first pin is gone. And that anti-rattle clip is sort of retained in there by the pad sensors. I've actually never done the brakes on this car before. I've done the brakes on the SRT8 Chrysler that I have, but those Brembo brakes are designed a lot like these, and I'm lucky that the parking brake assembly does not use these brake pads. There's actually a secondary system within the top pad of this rotor. There's a set of this is basically a drum, and there's a set of brake shoes in here that act as your parking brake, so this brake job would be a lot more simple. And because the new brake pads, when you get them, this is what I'm going to be using, I'm going to try to take them out, are much thicker, obviously, than the ones that are on the car now. One of the things we have to do before we do anything is move these pads back on back. Move this piston back into the chamber so we can take them out. And to do that, what I like to do is just take a regular pair of pliers, use an old rag to kind of protect the caliper from scratches, and give it a squeeze. Might take both hands. It's a little hard to do. Now I'm going to move up to the other position here so I can avoid getting that piston cocked in the bore. And the reason why I haven't taken out the other one yet is as I push this piston in, the other piston on the other side is going to want to push out. I don't want that piston to pop out of the bore and blow the seal and everything else. So this is definitely one thing I want to do one at a time. Pretty hard to do actually with the just these pliers. I don't really have enough leverage. They make special tools for this with long handles. I think that's bottomed out as far as I can get it. And out comes the pad. The pad just slides right on out of the caliper. We can take our rattle clip out now. And that's what the pad looks like. You can see some of the bonding is starting to come off. So this pad got a little hot, but you can see just how thin and wore down that was. And you can see exactly how this wear sensor works. On the new pad, you've got a hole right here where the sensor fits into. And as the pad wears down and approaches that hole, it makes contact with the rotor, which is grounded, turns the light on. You can see exactly what happened. The pad wore down so much, it's starting to rub against that wear sensor now. And I may have to replace that wear sensor. Yeah, you can. If I rub it away with my finger, you can see the bare metal. I've got some spare wear sensors. That's basically how they work. And this just slides right on out. Or should. And that's what it looks like. And I can transfer this to the new brake pad. So now what I'll do is I'll yeah, if I clean this up a little bit, this is not, I wish a camera would focus sometime this year. You can see this is not reusable. It wore down the wear sensor too much. It's kind of got like a half moon shape on this piece right here instead of being round. I could technically reuse it, but I've got spares. So I'm going to go ahead and find some of those spares and be right back. Okay, I've got some spare sensors out, and here's what the slightly used sensor looks like. The pads evidently were replaced before the sensor made contact. It's just round on the end. And here's the sensor doing its job as it wore down. It actually sacrifices itself, so basically half of that surface got worn off. So I could reuse that sensor, but I'm going to go ahead and use these spares because they're in better shape. And what we do to put them back in is we line them up with that hole in here and just slide them on in, making sure that the orientation is correct. And hopefully you heard that snap. So now this pad and sensor is ready to be back installed back in the car. And let me zoom in again. And by the way, I had to use a bit more force than was available with these pliers. You guys can do the same thing. You can just take a crowbar like this, and you can stick the old pad in, just like that. Put the crowbar in here, and then basically pry very gently to force the piston back into the cylinder, making sure not to damage the rotor. So now this pad's ready to be installed, and it's actually pretty simple. It just goes ahead and slides right on in now. Just as easy as that. And now what we can do is the same thing on the other side. Take our towel and cover the caliper. And squeeze that piston back. I can actually hear the fluid leaving the caliper there as I squeeze. It actually wasn't too hard. Now this pad will just slide right on out. And you can see it's in much better shape. Got a little damage right there, but compared to the outer pad, you can tell how this car likes to wear its pads. The outer pad tends to wear first. So we'll take out the wear sensor. That just pulls out. And we'll clean it up a little bit for the new pads. And this wear sensor I can go ahead and reuse since the pad wasn't worn down too much. And by the way, that's what the back of the new pads look like. And same drill as before. We'll just go ahead and install the new sensor. Definite positive click. And now we'll find out if I push that piston back far enough. Just barely. So now you can, one of the things you want to check for is the play in here, and you want to be very careful when you're done with the brake job, because now these pistons are pushed back in their bores and there's a little bit of excess play in here. Once you get the car back on the ground and get the engine running, you want to pump that brake pedal enough times to move these pistons back up against the rotor. If you don't do that, the first application of the brakes, you're not going to get any braking action here because the pads are way too far away from the rotor. So that's a very important step. Now we're ready to basically assemble everything. Start with the anti-rattle clip. Just kind of set that in there. And we'll take our pins, line them up with the pads. Which aren't really quite lined up yet. You can see how that pin right here is pointing down at a weird angle, so let me see what I can do about that so you guys don't get too bored, and I'll be back. Well guys, I think they sent the wrong pads for the vehicle. This is the type of pad I'm using, so just remember that for your cars, that they will not work on the W126. You can tell by how badly angled these pins are. There's just no way those pins are going to line up to the holes on the other end, no matter what you do. And if we take them out and compare them to the old pad, you can see that there's no way those holes line up. So it's either the wrong pad or way off on their dimensions. Bad quality control. I'm gonna say it's basically the wrong pad. But anyway, I'm gonna I have no choice but to put these old pads back in. At least I know at this point exactly how much I have left on them, so I can drive the car a little bit. And we'll go on to the front side and see if we have better luck with that. Okay, here's what the front setup looks like, and I'll go ahead and go through that same process to get these pads out. If I can find my punch. So we just drive out the pins. They're not too hard to get out. And we'll take a screwdriver and depress the anti-rattle clip a little. Take the top pin out. Take the bottom pin out. Undo the wear sensors. Take the anti-rattle clip out. And we'll have to move these pistons back again. And these brake pads up front aren't really bad, but I'm going to go ahead and change them anyway to make sure the friction material matches. And we can use the crowbar technique here, hopefully. Force that piston back. Well, not quite. Still has a way to go. I need to get one of those tools to make this a lot easier. There we go. Just kind of work it in like that till it bottoms out. And out she comes. And this pad's much thicker. So we'll do that at the other side in just a second. We'll see if these front pads are any better than the rear ones. Clean up this wear indicator. We'll slide that in. These brake jobs are actually not that hard. If you have the right tools and the right parts, alright, looks like I gotta force that piston back a little more. And a new pad fits in like that. And now we'll do the same thing on the back side of the caliper. I hope you guys can see that move. And we'll take out the wear sensor. Clean that up a little bit. And we'll put this in the new pad. Didn't quite get the piston back far enough. It's kind of a trial and error process here. Getting these pistons pushed back is actually the hardest part of the job. Give that one more try. Still no go, so let me stop the camera here and play with that for a while and be back. Okay, I finally got this other pad put back in. Wasn't too bad, had to use the crowbar. And now what we have to do is just go ahead and reassemble. And we'll work this anti-rattle clip in here. Get that in position. And now we'll start our pins. It's a little bit tricky because you got to keep pressure on this spring here. Alright, now we have to just knock these pins back in position from the back side. And now we clean up our electrical connectors. And go ahead and reinsert and wait for that positive feel that they're engaged. And check to make sure things are lined up. And that's basically how you renew these kinds of brakes. This is the W126 Mercedes with the Bendix calipers. The last thing you want to do, of course, is remember to realize that these pads are away from the rotor now, so you want to pump the brakes up before you drive the car. And also to check the master cylinder reservoir to make sure that you haven't spilt any brake fluid, because as these pistons go back into their bores, you're going to be pushing out brake fluid out of the master cylinder, so you might want to be careful there. And if it's too full, you'll have to crack open a bleeder screw and bleed some of that fluid out. But sorry about their rear brakes. I'll have to get to the rear brakes on another day once I can get the right parts. And but basically that's the gist of it on the rear side, is same basic process. But kind of keep these videos real, and sometimes you have problems like that and sometimes you don't. So hope this helps you guys. It's just because it's a Mercedes doesn't mean it's too hard to work on. You saw how quick it was to get these pads out of here. I'm going to go ahead and do the other side and see what went on with those rear brakes and get the right components this time.